Here we're given a table of values for f of x, a graph of g of x, and the function rule for h of x. We're asked to determine the following composite function values given the input or value of x. So for our first example, when x equals -1, we want to determine f of g of x. So if x equals -1, this is equal to f of g of -1. To evaluate this composite function, we start with the inner function value g of -1. So we want to find the function value or y value of g of x when the input or x value is -1. So looking at the graph of g of x, we first locate the x value of -1, which would be here, and the output or function value would be the y-coordinate of this point on the function. And therefore g of -1 is equal to +1. So this simplifies to f of +1, since g of -1 equals +1. And now we'll look at the table for f of x and find the output or y value when the input or x value is +1. And here's where x equals +1, and notice how the y value or function value is -2. So -2 is the output when the input is +1. And since f of 1 equals -2, this is our composite function value. Next, we're given x equals 1. We want to find f of g of the quantity x plus 1. And since x equals +1, this would be f of g of 1 plus 1, or just f of g of 2. So now again, we'll look at the graph of g and find the y value or function value when the input or x value is +2. Here's where x equals +2, and therefore the y-coordinate of this point would be our output or function value when the input is +2. So notice how the y-coordinate is -1, and therefore g of 2 equals -1. So this would give us f of -1. And now we'll go back to the table for f of x and find the output or y value when the input or x value is -1. Here's where x equals -1. And notice how the output or y value or function value is +3. So f of -1 equals +3, which would be our composite function value. And now for our last example, when x equals 4, we want to find h of the quantity f of x plus g of x. So if x equals 4, this would simplify to h of f of 4 plus g of 4. So going back to the table for f, we want to find the output or function value when the input or x value is 4, which we see here, f of 4 is equal to +3. So we have h of +3 plus, now we want to find g of 4 looking at the graph of g of x. So notice how when the input or x value is +4 here, the function value or y value is +1. So now we have h of the quantity 3 plus 1, which would be equal to h of 4. Now here's the rule for function h of x. H of x equals x squared minus 3. So to find h of 4, we'll substitute 4 for x, which would give us 4 squared minus 3, which would be 16 minus 3, or 13. So 13 is our composite function value. I hope you found this helpful.